Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Hey, I'm back. Gonna be back. Want to go ahead and do a little bit of a Friday bonus clip here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. And I want to talk about a program and a team and a coach that we talk about quite a bit here on the show. That is the Colorado Buffaloes and, of course, Coach Prime. Yeah, I'm talking about Deion Sanders. By the way, if you missed it, on Thursday night, we did have here on the channel an interview with Colorado D-line coach Deion Lewis. So make sure to go back and check it out. Coach D-Lew was awesome. I appreciate him. I've known him a long time. I'm so grateful that he took a few minutes out of his day to join us. But I'll tell you what, Coach Lewis has to be in a very good mood today because Colorado just moments ago, well, a couple hours ago now, but still made a big-time recruiting flip as they got four-star defensive lineman Christian Hudson was committed to UCF. He flips, and he is now headed to Colorado. So how about Coach Prime and those Colorado Buffaloes? Here's the thing, though. Listen, I'm not a scouting guru, okay? It's not just that Colorado got this guy. To me, why I wanted to do this video is to discuss how they got him, the manner in which they got him, because this is some of the most gangster recruiting stuff that I have ever seen. That's why I wanted to turn on the camera and start talking about it, okay? So Christian Hudson, as I said, was committed to UCF Central Florida, okay? So about 5-6 weeks ago now, whenever Colorado played UCF, they pulled off just one of the great recruiting moves that I have ever seen. Now, it's not to say that other coaches aren't great recruiters, they aren't creative, whatever. But essentially, when Colorado played at UCF, it was UCF's, they called it the biggest recruiting weekend in the history of the program. Big noon kickoff was there. Colorado was coming. Coach Prime was there. Shador, Travis Hunter, on and on. Well, you know what Coach Prime did? Coach Prime got in the ear of a lot of those kids that he knew were coming, basically got in the ear of every marquee, not every, but, you know, quite a few marquee players in the state of Florida, many of whom were committed to UCF, several of which were not, and basically said, hey, come. You know, you don't got to come all the way out to Colorado to see what Coach Prime and what the Buffs are all about. And so essentially where this whole thing came from is the fact that Coach Prime basically turned a UCF hosting Colorado game into a Colorado recruiting event for the ages, okay? They had hundreds of kids on campus. Coach Prime said afterwards, like, look, yeah, I talked with quite a few of them. We talked with this guy. Well, he didn't say names. He obviously can't say names. You get it. But we told him about Colorado. We told him what we're all about. We told them that they came and, you know, we hope they came and watched the show. And so I bring it up because this is one of the all-time recruiting moves that I have ever seen in terms of college football. Basically using another team's home game against your school on the road and basically turning it into your own event. Listen, I can't remember all the names that were there, but I remember Dallas Wilson, a 5-star wide receiver who is committed to Oregon. He was there. He reportedly talked to Coach Prime. By the way, Christian Hudson was part of the UCF class of 2025. And while it's funny, like it's hard to find visitor lists for all these events, but they said that virtually every UCF commit was on campus that weekend for that game. And so how did Colorado pull this off? Listen, part of it was really good team, really good program, clearly improving, okay? Part of it is, and I think this is a big factor, they went to UCF and they kicked the crap out of UCF, okay? And I think to me, you can't undersell the fact that you go in there, you win, you dominate against them on their home turf. Yeah, that's appealing to recruits. But it was also, again, exactly what I said, turning a UCF home game into a Colorado recruiting event. This kid, Christian Hudson, he ends up visiting Colorado the next week, or maybe it was a week. I think it was a week after because there was a bye after the UCF game. But he ends up visiting for the Kansas State game. And now a couple weeks later, he ends up committing to Colorado. So I can't say I want to say, I will say it. I've pretty much never seen anything like this, okay? Road game, visiting venue, it's your recruiting event, and now I think we're starting to see the byproduct of it. Kids are visiting Colorado. Kids are committing to Colorado, and we'll see if there are more on the board. What I think is equally as interesting to me is Colorado about to go on a little bit of a recruiting run? We know that Coach Prime is very selective in terms of what kids he will offer and what kids he will take commitments from out of high school. Doesn't offer a ton, doesn't take a ton. If you're good enough to come to Colorado, he really kind of wants you to come in and contribute right away. We've seen it this year with Draylon Miller. Obviously Jordan Seaton, that speaks for itself. We know about the history with Travis Hunter. We know about the history with some of these other guys. And so Coach Prime is never going to be a guy that takes 20, 25, 30 high school kids, okay? And that's okay. Everybody's got their own philosophy, and it's clearly working. But at the same time, what I will say, it's going to be an interesting couple weeks at Colorado because they are hosting Cincinnati this weekend. It is another major recruiting weekend, and I do wonder, by the way, it's a night game. I know Coach Prime doesn't like those night games. I get it. I get the 10:30 kickoff. A lot of the country isn't watching, but you know who is watching? Young kids, high school players. And oh, by the way, the crowd should be electric in Boulder. And so to me, what's interesting is you go back 2 weeks ago when they hosted Kansas State. As soon as that happened, Coach Prime hinted, hey, we got, 3 or 4 commitments out of this weekend. Now, not all of them are public yet, but right after that happened, Antonio Branch Jr. was committed to Penn State, flips to Colorado. You go down the list. Oh, by the way, Byron Baldwin Jr., safety, committed to Indiana, decommits. We all think he's going to end up at Colorado. Now Christian Hudson, who was on campus 2 weeks ago, has flipped. And I'm curious to see, okay, last big game at home, they didn't even win. Now, there was a lot of injuries, whatever. They didn't even win and got 3, 4, 5 commitments out of it. Here's my question. If they do that again in the coming, this weekend against Cincinnati, could we see something similar? I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Juju Lewis. Okay, so listen, Juju Lewis, if you follow any type of high school football, you know the Juju Lewis story. Was the number 1 high school player in the class of 2026, reclassifies to 2025, commits to USC, has stayed committed to USC. But this kid, he travels more than the freaking Kardashians, okay? Like, he is on the road basically every weekend, was supposed to be at Indiana last weekend for their big game against Nebraska, has been to Colorado many times, and we'll see. Listen, this is the least committed player that I have ever seen, and I'm curious, is this a scenario where Colorado, you get them back on campus in Boulder, maybe they have a big win, USC continues to struggle. Is this a scenario where maybe you flip this kid, you get him in to be the eventual potential replacement for Shedeur Sanders? Beyond that, other big names. Listen, again, these visitor lists are always tough to tell, but there is a tackle named Carday Smith that is expected to be there. He visited a few weeks ago. Believe it was the Kansas State game. I want to say it was the Kansas State game, but visited for Kansas State. Did not commit. Is committed to USC, but he's already flipped once. Was originally committed to Auburn, commits to USC. We'll see if Colorado can maybe get him. He's on campus for a second time. I don't think that you take 2 visits across country. He's a Southeast kid. They're serious about Colorado. So I will say I am so curious to see, can Colorado have another monster recruiting weekend? But I'll also say this, the Christian Hudson recruitment, the Christian Hudson commitment, that is some bad you-know-what. Okay, remember, Damian Lewis said on the show, Coach Prime does not swear, so I'll be careful with the words that I use. But the bottom line is, go to Florida, turn it into your own recruiting event, and this was the first byproduct of that. We will see if Coach Prime can keep it up, if he can keep this recruiting momentum rolling, and my hunch is that you will, especially if they beat Cincinnati this weekend. I didn't make any official picks, but I think, knock on wood, I think Colorado's winning. And I'll tell you, man, I think this could be another monster recruiting weekend for Colorado, for the Buffs, for Coach Prime. Appreciate everybody tuning in here on a Friday afternoon. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a quick favor, make sure and do so. Also, Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Pod on TikTok.